Gregor Chisholm, Toronto Star. You've been managing every year for the last 12 years. What was it about this opportunity that kind of made you want it to sign up for the daily grind again, as opposed to maybe getting a year of R&R or something like that?
Yeah, I really didn't plan when the season ended. I didn't really think I'd be doing anything come into the next season. But the first conversation with Ross was really interesting. And, his beliefs, I could tell the way he was talking and the belief in the club and what he felt like I could bring to the table. That was really interesting to me. And so that's really what started it. I'd had a couple of conversations with other clubs and roles that I wasn't interested in at all. But this one was really interesting, and also knowing the club. I mean, we've played you all not last year, but 2 years in a row, and knowing the talent and seeing it, I know it's a really good club.
Ross, we were talking to Ross earlier today, and he just kind of meant like the Jays coaching staff doesn't always necessarily stick to traditional roles. And he kind of mentioned the knowledge that you would bring on the hitting side as well, and some of the bigger picture stuff and the psychological approach and things like that. What was that part of the things that appealed to you? And what do you think of this kind of dynamic offense that the Jays have?
No, that definitely appealed to me. I think coming in a bench role that basically it was just sitting there with the manager and kind of going along those routes was not a lot of interest, but from the standpoint of at least having like an interest in those other things and collaborating with the rest of the staff. Obviously there's lots of guys on the staff I'd love to meet and get to know, and it's been a successful club, so it's nothing to come in and it's not a makeover or anything like that, but Ross seemed to believe that I brought something to the table, and that was really interesting, and more than just a strict bench coach role.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Your turn, Caitlin.
Hey, Caitlin McGrath for The Athletic. Nice to meet you. We were talking to Ross, like Gregor said earlier, and he mentioned that the relationship between, basically the Blue Jays and you is pretty new. You're still building those relationships. Just specifically about John Schneider, what is it that you sort of liked or connected with him, and what excites you about working with John moving forward?
John's role was the most important to me. After I talked to Ross, and I love that conversation we had, but kind of I think early on with Ross, it's like John's got to be 100%, comfortable with me. And, my role I look at as I'm here to support, John in anything he wants me to do. I'm sure he'll define the role as it goes. But that was like the most important thing for me, is getting comfortable with John, and probably more than anything, John being comfortable with me. I'm not much of on the ego side at all. I feel like I'm here to help and here to help him. I don't want any trouble. I don't want to cause any friction at all within this staff. I want to be part of it and just humble myself and do the work and help players. That's what I love doing. I want to see players have success. I want to see the team have success. And I'm going to be supporting John in anything he wants me to do.
Speaking of players, I know this has all, happened fast, but some guys, I think, from Miami, and maybe just knowing some players just through baseball, like, have you been able to reach out to any players yet about this opportunity for you?
I've actually had some texts from some of the guys that played for me in Miami. Bo had reached out, talked with him a little bit. I'd let him know I had a dog named Bo, and it always wasn't, he's a puppy, so he wasn't always getting good call outs. But yeah, I have had a chance to talk to a couple of guys. Some guys on the staff have reached out. Again, a lot new. I know some of the players from watching and seeing them from the past. So, it's going to be new for me and learning, everything about them.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're up, Mitch.
Hey, Don, thanks for the time. Mitch Bannon from Sports Illustrated. I was just wondering, when you were talking with the Jays, did you have to sell yourself at all, or how did you kind of claim that you would kind of be a fit for this job?
I didn't try to sell myself. I just want to be myself. And I didn't really know if it's something that I wanted to do. So I spoke earlier that I wasn't really necessarily looking for a job when I, went into the winter. Didn't necessarily really thought I'd be home really with my 8-year-old and kind of being a part of that. But Ross kind of, told me what he thought, and really from there, talking with different groups within the organization, just try to be myself. And as much as anything, I didn't try to sell myself. I always just try to be myself.
And specifically in this most recent stint with Miami, is there anything you kind of learned about yourself or learned about kind of leadership in these most recent couple of years that you're going to take forward to Toronto?
Well, I think you learn from every year you coach or manage. You're going to continue to get better and continue to learn. But I felt like, the organization, you feel like you have to have that strength from top to bottom. Right. And so it starts with ownership. It moves down through the front offices, down to the field staff. And I think that there's, a one-mindedness about, how you want to go about things as far as, from the field standpoint about winning games and how do we approach it and how do we get our players to play their best baseball and what are we after? So you learn that it has to be in place to be successful.
Thanks, Don.
You're up, Shay.
Hey, Don. Shai Davidi from Sportsnet here. Forgive the background noise. I'm in a noisy spot. I heard you mention before, you talked about wanting to help players, and listening to you on the podcast with Joel Sherman and John Heyman this week. You also talked about being able to see things in the way that you like to help contributing to players. Can you describe a little bit about your approach to helping players and how you try to communicate with them and give them stuff that you're offering from your experience and your knowledge?
Well, I've always found out that there's no reason to offer it if they don't want it. And start with that. But you try to be, like, as a manager, it's a little different because you just don't have the time to reach out into all areas. You're kind of overseeing everything. So it's a little different. From the hitting coach standpoint, when I was doing that, there's things you see, and you just talk with guys and you ask them how they're feeling, and you can tell when they're comfortable with what they're doing, and you can also tell when they're not comfortable. So you have to have conversations. There's different ways to get things across, and there's different things that cause problems. Sometimes it's the swing itself. Sometimes it's the thinking at the plate and, either approach or lack of approach, an understanding of that. So you just have conversations, and really you have to build trust with these guys. They have to trust you that you're there to help them. And I've always came from that kind of teaching point, is that, hey, I'm not here for me, I'm here for you. I want to help you in any way I can. If I'm suggesting something and it doesn't work for you and it doesn't fit, then get rid of it. And it's not going to hurt my feelings.
You have almost about 3,600 games of experience split almost equally between being a player and a manager. I'm just wondering, how have you learned to draw on the different sides of it? When are you kind of looking back to your player experiences, and when are you drawing back on some of your coaching experiences to try to reach players?
It depends what they're going through, right? Because I feel like I've been kind of through all stages of, coming in, just getting to the league and trying to prove yourself and wanting to go show people that you can play. Going through different stages, arbitration, contracts, struggles, all those things are the same. We talk about how much the game keeps changing and evolving, but when a guy's 0 for 15, he's feeling just like I did when I was 0 for 15. So you draw upon that. And then as a coach, you're drawing upon relationships that you have, experiences, interactions you have with players. Some of them may not have went right or the way you wanted them to go. You make changes, you go at it a different way. So you use everything that's kind of came across your plate, however that works, to get your message across.
Thanks a lot, Don. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll go to Mike.
Mike Wilner from the Toronto Star. Don, welcome to Toronto. Welcome back to the AL East. It's been a while.
Thank you, Mike.
A lot of the questions have been about your teaching hitting and what the level of hitter you were. You've got a Gold Glove first baseman here just coming into his own. And how much are you going to be able to advance what Vladdy's doing defensively with the experience that you had?
Well, again, I think number one is Vladdy just won a Gold Glove. I was actually at the dinner, so I'd seen that right away. And so really just going into different things, whatever he's dealing with at the time, right? If there's something that he has a problem with or uncomfortable with, or if there's some, different things that you see out there, most of the things that you see are subtle. They're not major things. And there may be a play here or a play there where you would say, hey, would you think about doing this? Or why are you looking to do that? Right. One thing or the other. Right. So it's back to conversations about, communicating and talking through a situation and just seeing where their outcome is. Their answers or the way they go about it kind of tells you what they're thinking.
And Shai just mentioned how you've got so much time in the dugout relative to how much time you spent on the field. There's been this old saw in baseball for a long time that it's tough for the elite players to be elite coaches and managers, because you can't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, do this like I did it, because not a lot of people can do that. How did you find that transition from player to manager, and what have you learned over the long period of time to teach that patience, and that they can't, a lot of them just can't do the things that you were able to do when you played?
Well, I always start from the beginning because I was a 19th round pick that couldn't throw, couldn't run, didn't have power. So I had to fight my way through the minor leagues and fight my way up to the big leagues, and never forgot any of that. I think patience comes from my father. Honestly, he was pretty quiet and was a patient man. And then when I went into coaching, I set out long enough to have a separation from the players. And then when I went back into coaching, in my mind, I'm going back as a servant, and I'm here to help. And my only success comes from their success. And again, it's not ever going to be about me. It's going to be about whoever the player is and whatever way we're trying to help them. And that's all I cared about. And I think when you care about players and you want their career to go good, and I always say, I want you to make a ton of money. I want you to go out and have great years. I want you to get paid, right? Everybody wants that. So I want them to know from the very beginning, I'm here to help them. And it's not about me.
I have a couple more, but I'll go to the back of the line if there's time at the end. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, you're up, Marty.
Hi, Don. My name is Marty Klinkenberg, and I'm with the Globe and Mail in Toronto. And I have two. Hi, nice to meet you. I have two questions. One's just a kind of funny little one here. What kind of dog is Bo, and how old is he?
Bo is like 5 months, and he's a golden doodle. And yeah, so he thought he was going to be about 50 pounds, and he's probably going to be about 70. And when I was talking to Bo, you're training a puppy, and you don't always wake up in the house with a clean house. So Bo's gotten lots of names at 2 a.m. and things like that. So so that's what we're doing. My wife called it a mental health dog, but I'm not quite sure it's good for my mental health.
And then what I'd like to ask you is, I'm sure over all these years, you've probably had a few occasions to be in Toronto. What are your thoughts about it?
No, Toronto's cool. I've always, from the very beginning, it's always been a city for me it's been interesting, and I had success early on there. I always loved Canada in general. My brother played, the weird connection. My brother played in the Canadian Football League, played for Saskatchewan, or he started with Saskatchewan. And I know it's probably too old for maybe most of the people that watch this, but he was behind Ronnie Lancaster for a couple of years in
Wow.
Saskatchewan. And I think he got traded maybe to the Blue Cats or something, I don't know, not the
Tiger
Argonauts.
Tiger
Hamilton,
Cats.
yes, for a minute. And I think he got enough concussions or getting beat up enough to go back to work. And then for the last probably 5 years, we've leased from a Canadian couple in Miami, and we bought our home in Indiana from a Canadian couple here in Evansville. So Canada has been interesting for me, but I always loved how clean it was, and obviously I played in New York my whole career and liked the big city, and Toronto reminded me of New York, but I always thought it was extremely clean and the people very friendly. So it's always been good for me.
Thank you very much and good luck.
Thanks.
Your turn, Rob.
Hey, Don, Rob Longley from the Toronto Sun.
Rob.
Hey, nice to meet you. We've all got to know John Schneider pretty well up here. What about his personality do you like, and how do you see the two of you meshing as compadres in the dugout?
I think we're going to be great. Honestly, I mean, I love talking with John. I can tell that totally organized and what he wants to do, and he knows what he wants to do, and which is huge for the manager that knows what he wants to do. We've had, I can't say probably 4 or 5 conversations on different subjects on game planning in different areas, and so it's been really good, and just the excitement he has about players. But I really found his commitment to decisions and what he wanted to do. And he was comfortable with me, I think. I think he knows that I'm there to help him. If he wants an opinion, I'm not afraid to give it to him. He can do whatever he wants with it. I think we're going to be great.
You alluded to it earlier. The attraction of this team is what made you come back to work this winter. What are a couple things that maybe jump out at you right away about this ball club and its potential?
Well, I think you look at kind of the combination of youth and experience and an offense that can throw runs up. Over the last few years, again, I've seen these guys, they throw runs up in a hurry. That doesn't mean you're necessarily always consistent as you want to be. The pitching is there. You got 3 or 4 guys off my former staff in your bullpen now. I hope Hunjin gets back quick. A guy I had in LA, another guy I love. So just the whole package, right? You can see a club that a number of things. Obviously, the team in general, they've had success, and they're ready to move on and keep winning. It seems like the players themselves are committed to that, which is huge. But it's a great environment. The stadium's cool there. It's loud. There's passion around the club. I mean, I think all the ingredients are there to win. It's just going to take that commitment from, John, obviously following John's lead, but our staff and the players to take it to the next level.
Great. Thanks, Don.
All right, we'll end here with Mike.
Thanks, me again. You talked about how you were ready to just sit back and take the time off. How surprised were you when the phone rang and to talk about a job in Toronto?
Pretty surprised, honestly. I didn't really, think about Toronto at all. I'd seen their club, knew they had a good club. But when Ross called, and just the first conversation, I just felt great, honestly. And that's where it was like, we'll see where it goes. But it piqued my interest right away. Like I said, I had some other clubs that weren't the same type of interest for me at all. And this one just seemed to be like a good fit. And from there, it just had to go to John. As far as I was concerned, he had to be 100% comfortable. And then obviously there was a whole process there. I'm sure there was numerous guys, interviewing or whatever they do. And it was just just going through the process, but it was interesting from the very beginning with Ross.
And lastly, I mean, it's been a while, but the Blue Jays have had a tradition of bringing in guys who were major rivals in the 1980s and using them to help win World Series. They did it with Jack Morris and they did it with Paul Molitor. And now, you know, you gave them a very hard time in 1985. How do you feel about potentially continuing that tradition from a different spot?
No, I'm here to win. So I didn't come to the Blue Jays to help somebody else win. So, you know, I'm chasing it like everybody else, right? I want to win. The organization wants to win. I'm sure fans want to win. I'm going to have no problem, you know, doing that. And I think true fans respect that, right? They don't think you're going to come in and just there for the job, right? We're there to win. And that's what professional sports is. So, you know, that's the interest.
Thanks. Good luck.